president, and Di is our other secretary slash president. And our mission statement as a PTA council is to help PTAs build institutional knowledge to facilitate interaction between school PTAs, the dissemination of information, and to encourage and facilitate outreach to other community groups. And welcome everyone. We have our Superintendent Ford Marthel is here with us tonight for the first half of our meeting, and Chris Albeck, who's the director, I believe director is the right title, of is it curriculum development. I hope I got all that right. And yeah, so Superintendent, I don't know, would you like to, I'm not sure we have anything else on to do before that. I think we can go ahead and welcome you and have you jump in here. And I know you had some topics that you were going to respond to some of our questions, yep, but then also you had some topics that you were bringing as well.
Yes,
which we appreciate.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me again. Di and Rita, I did share a slide deck with you. I'm not sure if you were able to access it because I did not share it before, like 2 minutes ago, but I also put it in the chat. I see Scott says that they're not able to access it. So Scott, let me just update the permissions, and then you should be able to see it. But my ask is, Rita or Di, if either of you can share it, present it on the screen, that would be helpful. And so, so good evening, y'all. I did get a number of questions from you all, and definitely am here to try to answer those questions. We're good?
I'm going to try to get, I'm trying to get it on. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay.
No problem. Sorry about that. So definitely want to, I just heard Rita say I have the first half of the meeting. I was like, whoa, I thought I had 15 minutes, but definitely willing, ready to stay here as long as you all need me, with the intent of really supporting you all in the mission that you heard Rita share, and really focusing on the dissemination of information and encouraging and facilitating outreach to other community groups. And so with that, if you can go 2 slides past to slide number 3, what we really wanted to do is for sure make sure that we have time to respond to some of the questions, though not all, that you had shared with Rita and Di. But I also want to just address the moment and what's top of mind for lots of folks. For sure, it was top of mind for us and BUSD as we work to support our diverse student learners. Is I've had a couple of folks reach out, folks from the PTA, as well as just folks throughout the community, asking us, what can you all do? What can families and community members do to support our diverse student body? Specifically, what can you do as partners with us as we work to really protect our undocumented students and families in BUSD? And so, Rita and Di, if you don't mind, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that. And I also have Yasmina, who is over our Office of Civil Rights, here with me. And then after that, we'll be happy to respond to some of the questions that you sent me, as well as have a plan to send you responses, as well as to engage folks in open-ended questions here in real time, if it allows. And so if you go ahead and go to the next slide, we just want to make clear, because I think there's a lot of anxiety and confusion around just what's happening right now and where Berkeley stands. And I hope that you all are clear on where I stand and my team, and of course our Board of Education, which is that we support all of our students, regardless of language they speak, zip code, race, ethnicity, their immigration status, etc. But want to remind folks that even if we didn't have that as our Berkeley values and our mission, which we do, just being an immigrant itself is not a crime. And so this idea of being an illegal immigrant is something that we actually challenge here in Berkeley, and wanted to share that resource and that mindset and that challenge with you, because I think sometimes it's used as a very easy way to confuse folks around, like, hey, I'm just upholding the law. But we want to make it clear that being a non-documented person in itself is not any type of crime here in the US, and for sure it's not a crime in Berkeley. Next slide, please. With that, we also want to just double down on the fact that it is one of our obligations morally, of course, but it's also a legal obligation that we have to make sure that we protect the rights of all of our students. Yasmina helped with this particular slide, and like I said, she's the Office of Civil Rights, so she's going to give you all the legalese. I'm not. At the end of the day, we say and we know that We cannot and we will not deny enrollment to any of our babies, nor will we disclose any information about our students. And so as you're thinking about how Berkeley keeps our students safe, the first way that we do that, one, is by honoring them and their diversity and saying you can come into our schools, but two, saying that we're not going to even ask you questions about your immigration status, right? Which is making it that much less likely that we're able to discriminate with against you on those particular grounds, right? And less likely that we have information to share with anyone who wants to try to negatively impact you because of your immigration status. And so first and foremost, want to double down that it is our legal responsibility to take babies in as a public school system and to protect our students. And their rights. And one of the ways we do that is to make sure that we don't ask any questions about immigration status, nor do we disclose or share immigration status. Next slide. Just to double down on that, it's just California Constitution says that all students of public schools have the inalienable right to attend campuses which are safe, secure, and peaceful. So every day, all day, when our students are coming to our schools, our educators and our staff and our leaders know that that is their right, and it's our responsibility to protect that right, regardless of who's in office or regardless of executive orders or regardless of what others might be saying around what is permissible or who should be on our campuses or not. And so wanted to kind of start you off, not just about who we are as Berkeley and our values, but also just what is right and fair according to the law. And that's important because we know that it's the law that is being used and tried to be exercised to support the efforts that are coming forth against our undocumented students and their families. And so we're not surprised, right? A lot of us knew. You can go ahead back to the next one. A lot of us anticipated this and a number of other things happening, not just in our nation, but that it was going to touch home. And so we actually started last year thinking about how do we prepare to support and take care of our undocumented students, all of our students. But again, tonight is really focused on our undocumented students and families. And so did a number of things. We one, made sure that our policies were tight. And again, just what I referenced before, that we and our staff knew and understood the law, that we're not asking anyone to break the law by keeping these babies safe. We're actually asking them to enforce the law by keeping those babies safe. And again, aligning to our Berkeley core values. We've had a number of trainings for our district staff, as well as our contractors and our volunteers and our subs around our ICE protocols. And so that's everyone from folks who are in the classroom to the folks who might be greeting you in the front offices, the folks who are there every day and the folks who are only there occasionally. And we keep doing these trainings ongoing to make sure that as many folks as possible understand what's expected of them before school, during school, and after school. We also have been sending out communications that I hope that you all have received. And our schools have been printing information, including the red cards we'll talk about in a minute, to make sure that families know how to get support and what their rights actually are. We have signage around our school, and there are probably some signs that folks are like, why isn't this sign up? We are a school, and so there's some level of protections that we have, but we also need to make sure that everyone feels safe. And there's a whole lot of nuance to that Yasmina can talk about if you're interested. But we are only putting up approved signs by the district. And so if you're coming in like, hey, I got this really cool poster, or why aren't you telling people about this? There's likely reasons. And so we are definitely sharing information within the constraints, if you will, that we live in as a school district. Sorry. We work really closely with our OFI members and our staff, our counselors, to make sure that students who might be at risk or might feel impacted and their families have access to resources. And we have continued to do Know Your Right trainings to give information to our families in partnership with some of our community-based organizations, and have been and are active participants in a number of different forums where folks come together to talk about this very topic. And again, we were talking about this even as early as last year and have been even more actively and more frequently talking about it this year, particularly after last week's announcement. We have a number of handouts and things that go to our staff as well. Some of those things we keep internal. So you might say, well, I want to see what the plan is. And we're like, we have a plan. We're not going to share it, not because we don't trust you and don't consider you a part of our community, but because we understand that the more you share things, the more likely it is to get in hands that we don't want it to be in, and folks can use that information against us and ultimately against our babies. Next slide. So I'm going to pause really quickly. I hope that many of you have seen or heard about the red cards. I guess we're animated, guys, so just click, click, click. And then I'm going to just pause and let Yasmina do a quick overview of what the red cards are, where we find them, and what they're for.
Awesome, thank you. So red cards are basically little like wallets thing that we're passing out to our students and their families. And they're especially important if families are not native English speakers, because if ICE does show up to their door, it provides them in the moment of stress and panic, with steps what to do and what not to do. But also the other side of the card provides I'm raising my hand. Provides information to the agent themselves to say that I do not consent for you to come in. I need to see a warrant, and all of the things that families might have a hard time communicating at the time when it is crucial that they know their rights and know what to say. So we have been printing the red cards. A lot of nonprofit organizations have been donating red cards to our schools. So you should be able to find them in all of our school sites at this point. And then the yellow cards, which are kind of green, but don't tell anyone, have rapid response phone numbers. So each county within the Bay Area has their own rapid response phone number that actually tracks ICE activity for that specific region or for that specific county, and as well provide services where people can actually come and meet you to help you sort of navigate ICE if you have enough time to do so. So both of these things are available and will continue to be available at our schools.
Now, our hope up to this part, and we're almost done, is that you're like, we knew that. We heard about that. Because again, we've been sending out communication to our families and to our staff that has a lot, if not all of this exact same information, and it's also available on our website. That said, we also know that in a district of over 9,000 people, 9,000 students at least, right? And then all of their families and members of the community, it's not unlikely that one or two folks didn't hear something. And you as the leads of PTA are oftentimes a touch point for so many folks or for information. And so we thought it was important to stop and pause, to not take for granted that you know it, but to make sure that you know it and have access to these resources so that if you need them, you can use them yourself, but also that you can share with community members, both in the schools and outside the schools, should you be called upon to do so. I see a couple questions in the chat. Yasmina, can you help me with the chat? Because I can't. Oh, can we share these slides with our schools community? We talked about that. And Yasmina, we said yes. And I really appreciate you asking that question, because again, there are presentations that we don't share. But this one, I think everything we have in here is pretty good. So please go ahead and share with the school communities. And I'm going to hope that your principals are going to say, we already shared this, because again, this is information that we have. It's just shared in a different format. And so thank you for that question, and keep the questions coming. We're almost done with this part. And so next slide, please. The other thing is that folks need to understand and know that though we love all of our babies and their families, right? We are a school system. We're a school district. We're here for teaching and learning. And there's some things that come with that, but we only have so many resources, et cetera. And so we really understand that in order to fight this good fight, if you will, that we need to do it as a collective and in coordination, collaboration, and cooperation with a whole bunch of folks throughout the BUSD community, the Berkeley community, and beyond. And so with that, we want to give you a little bit of to know that Berkeley is not trying to figure this out all by itself. Berkeley works really closely with the city of Berkeley. We're on the Berkeley City Sanctuary Task Force. We collaborate with the County Office of Alameda. So we're a part of Alameda County that has, I think, like another 15 districts. So we're always talking and sharing ideas and what are you doing and what have you heard and what have you seen? And then we have of course, some internal community-based organizations, internal meaning in the city, but also some outside of the city of Berkeley that we work with really closely. And so some of those folks, their names are there, but this is not exclusive at all. And as we learn about more organizations and folks who are also wanting to join us in this good fight and do this important work, we definitely are happy to join forces with them, if you will. But we're also really mindful and strategic to be careful that we don't just have conversations and work with just anybody, because there's a whole bunch of, okay, I was gonna say something wrong. There's a lot of folks who appear to be well-intended and who are not. And so we do have to be really strategic and thoughtful around who we're working with and who we're sharing with. But these are just a couple of the folks that we do share with, and wanted you to know that in case folks are asking or worried, can Berkeley do this by themselves? We are not doing it by ourselves. We are hopefully gonna do a lot of this with you. So next slide. One of the questions that came really quickly after last week's announcement was like, well, what can we do? And some folks actually started doing stuff even without us answering. I think I sent an email late at night to Di and Rita. I was like, okay, we got some ideas, but we want to be strategic and aligned, because it also creates chaos if a whole bunch of folks trying to do the same thing different ways. And that does not reduce anyone's anxiety or make folks who are impacted feel safe. And so we want to make sure that everything is coordinated. So there's a couple of things that have been starting to happen and things that are in the works. And so one of those is, looking at this picture makes me so happy. These are 4 families who are from the Oxford community. I can't guarantee that they are Oxford families, but they are folks who cared about Oxford families and showed up in front of Oxford just with signs to say we love our families, that everyone is welcome here, and specifically that immigrants are welcome here. And so when folks are like, what can we do? One thing that folks can do, and this is all, your level of comfort and will, is just to be out there, right? And just to let people see, let our I'm not talking about ICE, I'm not tripping, but let the families themselves see that you're like, this is a safe space to say you're welcome in Berkeley, and let the babies see that there's folks who are there who love them and support. And so thank you for these families who had this idea, but wanted to make sure that folks know there's no, nobody saying that you can't be in front of the school or on the corners, just really just showing your support. There's some folks who are a little bit more active than that, right? Who say, we want to hold the sign, we want to do more than that. And so there's a lot of organizations that are working together to really coordinate and make sure that folks who are on corners or in front of places or doing what we call these pods are actually informed of what to do should ICE come to the premises, or should they have an interaction with ICE. I'm gonna let Yasmina talk a little bit more about that. There's several organizations that we've been working with, but one in particular has really been intentional to create what's called Bay Area Action Pods. I want to be clear that unlike the folks in front of Oxford, the Bay Area action pods aren't school specific. They're more like location specific. And right now their intent is to think about where one might anticipate seeing undocumented folks, or where ICE might focus. Schools can be a part of that, but schools are not the only places they're focusing on. And so Yasmina's gonna talk about it in a minute, but what I want you to know is that there's these Bay Area action pods, but already we're starting to work with Berkeley Public Schools funds to think about some kind of BUSD action pods, if you will, some pods that are specific to our school sites, and making sure that our babies and our families can come to and from school and feel safe, but also make sure that those folks are actually trained, though, because I mean, I'm all for the posters and all the things, but I also want to be really honest about this is no joke, right? And so we want to make sure that we're not just saying, come to the school, be out there, and not prepare you for what you might encounter when you're there. And so training for those specific Berkeley pods, if you will, is forthcoming. In the meantime, Yasmin, you want to tell them about the Bay Area action pods?
Yes. So Bay Area Action Pods are actually being organized through an organization called Bay Resistance. And it's a series of trainings where you as a volunteer can sign up, and I think the commitment is like 3 months and you have to do 2 actions. And so they train you on how to be a legal observer, on how to how to intervene safely, both as far as initial communication with ICE, and then as well as making sure that you collect enough information about the person being detained so that their family can be notified. And so obviously there's a lot of interest for these trainings now. A lot of people are signing up, so they are a little bit delayed in providing all of the trainings. But if you are interested, if this is something that you would like to do, I encourage you all to visit and sign up. We will, Berkeley Public Schools Funds will also be sort of organizing their own volunteers specifically around schools that will undergo a very similar training conducted by another nonprofit organization in Berkeley. So if your jam is only our schools and our bus stops, then you can wait for that part. But if not, Bay Area Action Pod is a great way to start.
And again, there's nothing prohibiting you all from coming into the school, not into the school, coming to the schools and being around the schools to show a presence and show that you care. Next slide, please. Another really important need that has come up is that, just let me pause. We were actually looking at our attendance data for the last several days, and we have not seen a dip in our attendance. And we're happy to know that our families still feel safe bringing their babies to school. We're not making assumptions that all families do, however, right? And so we're still, again, very mindful to think about who are we not seeing at school and how can we support. But in terms of those action pods, et cetera, I wanted you to have that additional data point as well, that our attendance at this point has not seen any significant dips since the announcement around last week. But another thing that we know is that for multiple reasons, both because of fear of, coming outside, folks might feel okay to come to school, right? But maybe I don't feel safe to go to the grocery store or in other public spaces. And so Ophi has already shared with us that we have a number of families who are just looking for, how can I get resources for my family if I'm worried about going out. And so another way that you might be able to help, and I apologize, right there where it says sign up for Communications with Schools Support Network, we did not put the link. We will put a link there for you because that is a way for you just to let folks know, hey, I want to volunteer. Tell me all the different ways I can help, and they will pair you up with different opportunities that actually are aligned to what you say you're interested in. But we do have a number of food pantries and food banks that go on in the city of Berkeley, one of which is hosted collaboratively with Berkeley Public School Funds and our OFI team and Berkeley Food Network. Those are typically every third, I'm gonna say the wrong, every third Monday, and you see them here on this slide. We also have food pantries at Berkeley High School. And so how can you help? We were like, oh, people can volunteer. And we actually called the Berkeley Public School Funds contact, Miss Sally McLaughlin. And Sally was like, we are full, we are at capacity. So that's a blessing, right? So for both November and December, they have more than enough volunteers. However, they set the sign up sheet for January on will definitely be coming out. And if they expand the food pantry opportunities, then they will definitely reach out. And so again, signing up for that network that I talked about earlier that I didn't link, sorry, is an important part of that. But what Sally also shared is that some of y'all might know, OFI has some site pantries. And what I mean by that is sometimes OFI goes to the food pantries or goes to other food banks and gets, items that are non-perishable and brings them back, little things here or there, you need a little snack or send this to the family. So they're not full grocery bags like you might get at the pantry, but there are resources that your OFI folks have at your school sites. But also the Berkeley Food Network is another excellent opportunity for you all to not give specifically to the food pantries that Berkeley Unified is doing in partnership with Berkeley Public Schools Funds, but the Berkeley Food Network is the source of that food. And they've already let us know that they are just seeing the lines get longer and longer, both because of the anxiety around ICE, but also because, as you all know, the federal shutdown and such has really put a number of families, including Berkeley families, in a really challenging situation. So if you're interested in knowing more about how you might donate food or even how you might support the Berkeley Food Network and some of their other pantries, please click on the link and that information is there. Oh, I misread that, Ms. Shanosky. Whoo, I read that too fast. I was like, whoa, no bad words here. Anyway, so I read that too fast and wrong. Tons of shift is what she was saying. So the other thing that to make sure I call your attention to is not new, actually. We do have a Berkeley Emergency Fund, and that emergency fund, again, is another collaboration between BUSD OFED Department and Berkeley Public Schools Funds. And this is a way for you to say, I don't necessarily have time or I don't have food to give, but I want to donate funds to support the various efforts that are happening, again, in support of families who might be fearful of coming to school and need some extra resources, but also just in support of families in Berkeley Unified who need additional support. And so that website is here. It's through the Berkeley Public School Funds. Yasmin, remind us what they'll see when they go to that website, because it's not immediate.
No, it's not. So it's a sign up sheet, and then it has a million little like Berkeley Public School Funds programs that you can check to donate. So you can say like, oh, I want to donate money to the CTE project, or I want to donate money to our equity in the classroom. But one of those checkpoints that you will see is a family emergency fund, and that's the one that you can click on. You can also give like unspoken for funds. You can just donate. You don't have to pick a fund. But if you specifically wanted to help the family emergency fund, you would click on the little button, and then your funds will be allocated to that sort of budget.
Couple of things about the Berkeley Emergency Fund is that there are different ways they do it. Sometimes you're giving funds directly to families, but in most cases they're giving the funds to a service provider or to whatever the organization is that might be providing that resource to the family. But what's different about this than you just giving money to the Berkeley Food Network or some other organization is that it's really targeted to specific families and their needs. And so OFI sits with them to understand what their situation is, and then figures out if this fund can be a resource for them. And so there's some criteria, of course, but wanted you all to know that if folks are like, well, how can I give money, and who do I donate to? This is an excellent way to do it, and it really makes sure that the resource is targeted to the needs of the families or the students themselves. We do ask that you not just go to the school site and try to give the teacher's money or the OFI staff money. And because one, that's a lot for them to be responsible for, but two, we don't have then a system to track and log it, both to log what comes in, but also to log how it's used when it goes out. And the Berkeley Public Schools Fund has a very thoughtful process to do that. And again, they work closely with OFI. And so you can trust that if the money goes there, it will go to the families, and it will be funneled to the families through OFI. That said, we also know that some of y'all just can't help yourselves, right? And so you're like, hey, I was at Trader Joe's and I just got 10 gift cards. I don't feel like going through the motions, right? I want to just give it to OFI. What our ask is that if you are, wanting to give it specifically to your site, because some families are in need there, you are a PTA, you yourself have processes to funnel. Funnel's not the right word, but you have processes yourself to kind of track and log donations and getting it out. I would really suggest that it goes through your PTA, or you directly reach out to the principal to figure out what is the best system or structure to make sure that those gift cards get to that particular family or wherever it is you want it to go. If you're just interested in just Berkeley, because there's BUSD families who might be in need that are not at your school site, and you want to donate a gift card, you want to contact Lydia, who is our BUSD OFI supervisor. So again, if you're giving dollars, please go through the emergency fund. But if you're giving a physical gift card, we take those donations directly to OFI through Lydia or the site principal. Any questions about that? Because people were like, everybody's trying to give us money, everybody, and we are so appreciative. We want to make sure that it's not overwhelming for those who are trying to support our families. Okay, we're almost done. If you could click 2 slides, Ms. Dye, one more. That was just a little bit about the emergency funds. This is about what to do if you see ICE activity near BUSD school. You've probably also seen or heard this before, but I'm going to pause and let Yasmina go over it one more time, because again, sometimes when you are in the thick of it, you forget. And if you do choose to be like those Oxford families and get a sign and say you're welcome here, we also want you to know of what to look out for while you're there. So Yasmina.
Thank you. So most importantly, obviously take precautions to stay safe. These are our federal agents, and whatever we may feel about them, they have every right to arrest you. So just be conscious of that and know that. So whatever action you are taking, just make sure that you are safe in doing so. We ask that you do 2 things. One is that you notify the school principal that you are seeing ICE outside of the school, and the second, or whichever one you want to do first, right? And then also call ASALEP, which is the Alameda County Rapid Response Hotline, because they track all of ICE activity in Alameda County, and they can also be helpful in verifying whether what you're seeing is actually ICE or if it's some other form of federal enforcement. ICE cars to spot, very, very, like always an American SUV, and it's going to American-made car SUV. And it is going to have little lights and usually not any other markings. Sometimes their license plates are off, and sometimes they might have license plates. And then also, if you yourself are aware of some ICE presence around the school site, or if your community parents are aware of ICE activity around the school site and are unable to pick up their child, or don't feel safe to pick up their child, we encourage our parents to call the front office to make alternative arrangements for either pickup or for us to sort of hang out with our students for a little bit longer. So all of those things are something that we would like you to do. Obviously, very important to let the principal know, and very important to let ASLEP know that there is ICE around. And another cool thing that we're going to share with our families soon, we just learned about it through this Sanctuary Task Force, is that there's a really cool app out there that's called Ready Now, which helps families that are at risk set up an emergency plan. UC Berkeley is actually considering using this or advising their students to use this when they're protesting. And so basically it's a red button on your phone. You set up the message and you set up all of the contacts that you want notified. And so when you are in a state of an emergency where your phone is about to be taken or you're about to be put in custody, it's just a matter of clicking the red button on your phone so that all of these messages and all of these peoples are notified. And so this is a cool resource for us, which we just learned about from the city of Berkeley. So we are sharing it with you, but we will also be sharing it with other families.
The slide after this one, we can leave. We could just stay at this one now, Di. But the slide after this one has additional resources. We have on our own webpage, we have the BUSD resources for immigrant families, which has a lot more information. We also have given you links to Alameda County that has resources, some laws from CSBA, as well as some other organizations. So I wanted to just point you to that resource before I now stop this part and go to the questions that you sent me. But also want to say, just thinking about the ICE spotting. What do you do if you see ICE? You heard Yasmina let you know the hotline to call and what the cars look like. Just want to also just clarify that, I know people have different opinions and feelings about it, but I think we're consistent across the county and definitely have had the consistent feedback in partnership with city and other partners is that we will not necessarily send out a big mass communication to our Berkeley community every time someone says, hey, we think we see ICE. And that is not because we're not trying to be transparent. It's because as we've learned and as we've heard about in all these trainings, that there's a number of times where thankfully that is a false alarm. But if we are reporting out every time someone says that they think that they see, it actually increases anxiety. And makes folks feel more vulnerable unnecessarily, right? And so just so you all know, as folks who will be helping us inform us if they see ICE, we do take some time to really vet it and make sure it's accurate. And so you're not going to get that communication ASAP. If we send one, it's going to be after it's verified and we have more information. And so I wanted to share that with you all because I know that's been a point of tension or disagreement, if you will, but it is definitely coming from a place of wanting to make sure that we're not adding unnecessarily to the angst and alarm that might already exist for so many of our community members. And so we want to make sure we report accurate information. But we do appreciate folks, if you think you see it, call. So we're not saying don't report it. We're saying we're not going to send out a blast every time you report it. So with that, we're gonna just pause and see if there's any questions, and I'm gonna go quickly to the questions, some of the questions that you all sent me in advance. Any questions about the how to support or any ideas that sites are thinking about or wanting to know if it's okay to do or not? Yasmina is here. She's like Office of Civil Rights / legal, and I'm here to answer. Okay. I was like so bad with my wait time when I was a teacher, so I waited like half a second, but it felt like 30 minutes for me. So I will more time. And you could always, if there's a question or we're thinking about doing this at our school or please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll respond.
Real quick, I wonder too, Yasmina, if you have a contact that you could put for yourself so that we can reach out directly if we have questions for you at some point, or if different school sites do.
She's muted.
Yes, I am muted. I'll put my email is really easy. My last name is really difficult to spell, but you can always reach me at complaints@berkeley.net.
Oh, complaints@berkeley.net.
But
yes,
I'll put both of them in there. And then so I'll put it in the chat for sure. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys you sent a lot of questions and they're all over the place in that they have different topics. And so you can see the 5 topics here that kind of the chunks, if you will, for the questions that you sent. And so I'm just going to quickly cover each and then let Di and Rita tell me if I need to do more. But there were a number of folks who had questions just about the forecast of our budget, given the uncertainty that we know is in existence, particularly the changes or the threats of changes and cuts that are coming down from the federal government. At this point, I think it's important to note that about 2% of our overall district budget are federal dollars. And we're not poo-pooing at that 2%. We need every percent, but it also helps folks have a little perspective, right? And so unlike some of the universities and stuff that have a much larger part of their budget that is provided by the federal government, ours is very small. That said, the amounts that we do have from federal funds are really for targeted populations, our students with IEPs, our English learners, et cetera. And so we do understand and know that when there's uncertainty around those dollars, it creates angst for folks here on the ground. We have not, despite all the threats, so we know that, I think it was right around July, it was like, we're not going to give you the money. The way school budgeting works is right now we've encumbered the dollars that we're getting for this school year. And so the state has done a really good job of advocating and making sure that they've set the dollars aside. And so for the 25-26 school year, we have the funding that we're going to have. And so while folks are playing games and going ping pong and back and forth in other spaces, I want you all to know that Berkeley Unified's budget, we have the resources that we need from the federal contributions, and that we're allocating them the way that we've agreed to allocate them and to the student population that they have been identified for. That said, people were like, well, what's the impact? We are waiting to understand if there's any impact or implications for our 26-27 budget, right? And so if those of you all who've been on SBAC or talk about school budgeting, we're always in closing books, opening books, planning budgets, closing budget cycle. And so though 25-26, we're like, we're okay. We are anticipating and preparing ourselves for what happens if there's a change in federal dollars, because we know that we're committed to still supporting those students I talked about, our English learners, our students with IEPs, and we know that our federal funding does a lot to help us with that. So we're gonna have to be thoughtful and strategic around what can we do to do so, continue to do so, if the feds make any decisions that would negatively impact the funding for those babies. But we're not doing it by ourselves. We're doing it in collaboration and in concert, again, with other districts, but specifically with the state of California, who again has been a really fierce advocate to make sure that those students continue to get what they need and that those dollars are protected. As you might recall, again, it was we're not going to give you the money, and then it was fight. Okay, you got the money. So we're not doing this alone, but we don't know what we don't know just yet. But what we know, because what we've seen, is that we need to brace ourselves to prepare to continue to do the equity work that we do in Berkeley, without all of the assistance that we've gotten to do it in the past. Another impact, when someone said, what's the impact of the government shutdown? At this point, again, no impact right now, right? Because we have the dollars for this year. However, as you think about 26-27, typically around October is when we start hearing information, and the votes are happening around the budget for the 26-27 year from the feds. And so because there is the shutdown, that hasn't happened. And so it's kind of to be determined. We're waiting. That said, it's usually around January that you start to hear us all talk about our budget forecast as the state starts to give us more information. So there's some certainty with regard to our budget, in that we have what we need to do what we said we're going to do and keep doing this year. We do multi-year budgets, but we do know that for the 26-27 school year, there's some question marks. And so as soon as we get information about any of those implications, we'll definitely share them with you all. But right now, I don't want to say it too casually, but at this point, we have not yet been impacted by any forecast or any reductions in federal budget. Check. That's the budget circle. You also had some questions about strategic planning. You remember, thank you for paying attention, that I think it was last year, shared the pillars, our pillars of our strategic plan. And folks were like, so where are we at now? And where we are now is we are starting to really build out the pillars, identifying priorities under each of those pillars. We're going to be coming back to you to get some of your feedback on those priorities. But really what we're spending the majority of our time on is finalizing the graduate profile, which we hope to have finished by the end of this calendar year. What we found was that we were kind of trying to do two things at once, right? We're thinking about who we want our babies to be, what we want them to experience, and all of those good things while planning the plan to get them there. And we were making some progress, but we said, let's stop and pause and make sure we're all aligned and clear on who we want them to be and what we want them to know and experience we want them to have, and then say, what do we prioritize in our plan to make sure that happens? So we're still working on our priorities, and under each pillar, we'll be getting that to you for feedback, but we're really focusing now on the graduate profile. And what our hope is that sometime this coming month in November, we'll be able to give you another, the prototype is not the word, kind of a last draft to respond to, because there've been so many iterations. We've had so many community engagements and got feedback from folks. We want to just say, who are the babies going to be? What's our graduates going to look like? And be done with it, so then we can backwards map. So that's where we are. And we'll again be giving you that opportunity to weigh in shortly. Folks, we're also talking about our data. Hopefully you were at the board meeting 2 weeks ago where we did our data presentation of our spring CASP data. If you weren't, we're posting that particular presentation on our website very shortly. But we also did a press release and sent some information out to you all as well. The good news is that, as the folks who asked this question recognize, we've been seeing some positive and steady gains. Been in this industry for a long time, and gains are not always hard. To have consistent and steady gains is not typical, and so we're really excited about the steady and incremental progress that we're seeing. And we know we still have a lot of work to do. And so the question that folks have asked was, what are the broad changes and practices that we've identified that have led to the improvements, and also that have helped us identify areas of concern? I would say that it's the same thing I've said to you all over and over, right? It's really looking at data, making sure that the things that we're doing is more and more research-based and standards aligned, making sure that we have engaging pedagogy, making sure that we have aligned trainings for our educators, and then making sure that we're actually implementing the things that we've now trained them to do or they collaborated around. Is that why we've seen the steady gains? We want to believe so. This is year 4 for me and the team. And so we want to study a little bit more, but we do believe that really focusing on those areas that I just said have been how we've been seeing the steady progress. We also know we need to drill down or double down on those efforts to make sure that we're seeing that progress for all of our students. What we do know is we showed data in a different way this year. We didn't just look at meeting or exceeding expectations. We also looked at distance to standard. So we're actually just seeing how our students, all of our students are moving towards being at grade level. And we're seeing that even those students who are not meeting or exceeding standards right now are consistently making progress. And quite honestly, that's what you want to see. Sometimes we just focus on proficiency, and that's an important data point, but it cannot tell you the whole story. What you really want to see if those babies who are far below basic or below basic, right, below grade level, are moving as well. And our data says that both are. And so you're going to hear a little bit about math tonight, and we're happy to come back and talk about more of the other content areas or just our instructional approach altogether. But I would say it's, again, the data, PD, research, right? Checking in, having interventions, but it's also, I would say, just one big umbrella, really being intentional to have more instructional coherence across our system, so that if you go to Craigmont, if you go to Emerson, if you go to Ruth Athey, and you're in 3rd grade, you're still going to get the same content. And we're really excited about having our literacy curriculum this year to really take it again to the next level. Okay, strat plan, check. Next box was extended learning, because that's what all y'all want to talk about. Did I come to this group, Rita? I did. This was this group. So we talked about extended learning, and we are still talking about extended learning. And the question specifically was, can you share with us the forums and the meetings? The forums are here, but the other forum that I hope you all know about is there is a group of folks, the PTA Collaborative, that meets with our after school leads, extended day leads, to really talk about after school and problem solve and brainstorm. And so that is one space where that conversation continues to happen. It also continues to happen as we have our ongoing meetings with the city of Berkeley, who's an important partner with us as we think about how to meet the need of our families for after school care. And then in the 2x2 meetings, which I think I shared with you all the last time. At our last 2x2, we gave an update. There were some ideas and some suggestions and some next steps that we're following up on. And so those conversations are still happening with us, really, with me being really transparent. And I'll say it to you all, I think I said it out to you all before, is that we are going to have to really rethink how we do extended day or after school care to align with our resource allocation, but to also align to our capacity and just to meet the demand. And what we know is that we've been running a programs for a long time based on a model from some time ago, and that model just might not be the model that really serves Berkeley students and families the best. So we are open to rethinking how we do extended day and really looking to partner with you all, specifically those who are on the PTA Collaborative, to figure out what that might look like. Check, because the federal question was with that too, but I think I've already answered that one. And I have Jill here too, who I think Jill's here. Jill Hogendijk, who works closely with after school. And let me pause. Jill, is there anything you wanted to say or add with regard to extended learning and federal cuts?
Sort of same talking points that you used for the earlier conversation. We are in a holding pattern, particularly with the current government shutdown, about what will be approved for appropriation for 26-27.
And the last two were, and apologies, going fast, and I know y'all want to talk about math. So safety, there were some questions just about just the ongoing plans for securing our schools in Berkeley. You might recall, I hope you all recall, that last year's was the big lift was just really improving our access control across all of our sites. And that was with the cameras and the buzzers. And some folks got really mad, and some of y'all still mad because like, why do I have to buzz in? Why do I have to tell what I'm here for? That's all a part of access control, right? It's making sure that our campuses are safe, but there's another level of access control that we know about, right? We know that some of our schools, even if you don't, if you have a buzzer, that's great, but I could actually just walk in through the playground because there's various entry points, right? There's many of our campuses that are quote unquote open campuses. So some of you, I think, have questions about, well, what's the plan for Craigmont and what's the plan for this site? We are happy to come and have individual site by site conversations because that would be just a long meeting. But what I will share with you is that when you talk about safety on that level, when you talk about, are you building fences, et cetera, that goes into a different conversation. That goes into conversation about modernization and the plans for those schools. And for the majority of the schools, Longfellow, Sylvia Mendez could be included in that number right now. Those safety precautions or those improved safety precautions or increased precautions are already a part of their modernization. There's others that are not on deck for modernization, right? And so you have questions about them. Craigmont, for example, I believe it was summer 2027. I'm going to look while I'm on this call and put it in the chat, but there is a plan for when, for example, Craigmont will have the gates that will improve the safety and security of the students because there are different access points. But it's kind of hard to just bunch them all together because there's certain things we can do district-wide and say, all of our schools now have cameras, all of our schools now have buzzers, but there's other things that are really specific to the unique circumstances and configuration of those school sites. So Craigmont was one. So again, I'll put that in the chat. I believe it's summer 2027 that we expect to have the fencing completed. Last one, Rita, check, was facilities. And there was, and I will actually put this in the chat as well. Folks are just wanting regular reports and updates around the various projects that is happening in the district, Longfellow, Sylvia Mendez, et cetera, and our projects on track. A couple of things to share with you with regard to that is I'm going to put into the chat our facilities website. And on that website, it actually has information about a group that's called the Facilities Subcommittee. I think Director Shanoski is still here. Director Shanoski is on that committee, and that is a place where conversations about projects and such are happening because the question was like, well, why are they happening at the board meeting? They do happen at the board meeting periodically. Definitely there's a yearly update to the board on facilities, but because again, there's so many different projects that are happening, it would take up almost all the board meeting time to make those foci. And so the board made this subcommittee where those conversations can take place. And so if you're interested, I'll have that link in the chat. But also there was a request to say like, hey, might you do information items, right, at the board meetings around the various projects so that you're not taking up board time, but we're still getting the information because we don't have time to go to the subcommittee meeting. And the answer to that is yes. I talked to Assistant Sub Khalees, and he would love for every meeting to be about facilities, to be honest, but he is more than happy to do a quarterly information item. And so we'll start that in January. Be mindful though, that sometimes the update is what we told you last time, right? And so we will definitely be as transparent as possible. And thank you for that idea. But sometimes you're not going to be as excited about what you see. The other thing I wanted you also to know is on that same website, there's actually project information pages for all of our projects. So folks who are like interested in Longfellow and what's the timeline, if you go there, if you go down to the bottom, it says project information pages. And if you click, there's these cool little slide shows that show you the project and show you the timeline. They're not updated daily, but they're updated frequently. I think there was Sylvia Mendez who there was some confusion because there was a different link that gave you Sylvia Mendez project information, and folks were like, they took it down, it's gone. And that was definitely our poor communication because we didn't take it down. It moved to another spot because it was just too much for the district to update it. So we now have, anyway, it was a lot. So this is a more efficient way to get information. So please know that we did not take it down. We put it in a different location, and the links to all of those projects are on that information page on the facilities website, which I believe that Jill or Yasmina just put in the chat for you. So that is how to support our families and all your questions answered. I'm gonna say in 10 minutes, but I know it's probably more than that. I'm open to more questions if you have others, but otherwise we are ready to talk about math. And let me see what Rich said. One second, Rich, I can't see Rich. What did you say? Rich said.
He's just asking about the details. Yeah.
Should be on the page. And then Rich, so if you go to that page and you're like, kind of lackluster, let us know that, give us that feedback, and either I'll say why it is, or I'll take that feedback and figure out ways that we could add more information. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Okay, we've got one hand up. Lindsay, go ahead.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And you've got the whole team here, so we feel pretty special. Um, but my question is really around like coherence, because we know that coherence is really, really, really
Yeah.
hard. And we can work on it for years and never get to it. And so you'll show us those 3 arrows of the cycle of improvement, you know. But my question is, like, how can we support the departments and systems that we have to do less, to do more? We seem to always get distracted by a lot of things. Some of them are very, very important, and some of them are just new and shiny.
Okay.
And some of them seem like a good idea, but then you open up the hood and you realize that it's a very clever marketing scheme. So I'm asking how we can harness the power of some of our departments, like the one that Chris leads, the curriculum and instruction department, and the one that Jill leads, and the special ed department and the Brea department, all kind of together. There's
Okay.
probably more, to come up with some kind of, and sorry that I'm so long at this, but I'm trying to do it logically. Some kind of idea where the district leadership and site admins are idea driven, but then people on the ground doing the work are curriculum driven, and you've done the work to make sure that we are choosing the correct curriculum that has that deep evidence base, and you're not just being sold another story.
Lindsay,
So
you got something really specific you thinking about right now.
I
That-
do, of course I do.
Tell
You
me, so
know
what
I
is it? 'Cause I
do.
was like, because I was with you first, and I was like, where's she going? Are you talking about like math curriculum? Are you talking about science curriculum? Yeah, what you talking about?
I'm talking about all coherence systems that PD basically never works because we're all over the place. It's performative in so many cases, and we never get a chance to practice what we do in PD because there's so many competing demands in
I
the
hear you.
day. I
Okay.
mean, like the job in the classroom is really, really difficult. You've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
management plus who's in front of you, plus this, plus that. It's basically impossible. And yet we ask our people to implement these ideas that are just like in an hour-long training. And I can see I'm losing some people with their
No, okay, so that was a lot. That was a lot, Lindsay, but okay, I'm gonna work with me, work with you. So I totally agree with you that coherence is important. So again, one of the foci, I think I said it somewhere earlier, is instructional coherence, because that's the thing, right? That's the thing that moves outcomes for babies, and just really, I think, helps with us with our equity initiatives, not just here, but everywhere I've been. So definitely believe in instructional coherence. You said there's a lot of this, we're getting distracted, and that's why I was like, you got something really specific, so maybe we could talk offline. But I think there are many distractions. Always, there's always things that people are trying to get you, like, do this, do that. But I think that the team has, in the last 4 years, and I have evidence of this, right, has really done a good job to stay the course and keep the focus, right, and not get distracted. So distractions will always exist, particularly in public education, but whether or not you get distracted is a different thing. And I think that we've kept our eye on the prize. Again, first focusing on literacy with some very clear and specific steps about how we're going to get to where we're going, and a sequence that we believed was important to follow. And there was a whole bunch of folks who didn't like that sequence. Could be called a distraction, right? But we stayed the course, and now we're to the phase where we have the curriculum we're implementing. You talked about curriculum, and you said something about the idea, the principals and the district leadership being the idea drivers, and then there's folks who are choosing the curriculum. And I think I said a long time ago, I'm a teacher all day first. So I was a teacher before I became a principal, before I became a coach. I did all the different roles, and now I'm superintendent, but I'm still a teacher. And so for me, it's not just about us coming up with ideas and saying, go do it. We have a number of structures that allow us to have ideas that are typically informed by research, sometimes from the ground, our educators themselves, but that then engage and involve our educators who are in front of the babies, actually implementing or doing the things we're asking them to do around, is this working? Give us some thoughts, give us some feedback. So even with the curriculum literacy, and I'll let Chris and Jill chime in if they want and also talk about math, but I'm just thinking now about our PD day, right? We don't do one and dones, because to your point, I've been around long enough to know that that does not work. So we do PD because PD does matter, but PD on its own is not, right, what's going to make the shift. And so we definitely do our PDs, but we also have collaborations regularly. We also have observations. We also have coaching sessions. So I don't want to take over everybody's time to talk to you about the whole, what goes into making.
No, and I think I
What you missed.
probably misspoke
Because it was
in it was long and it was hard to control my words, yes.
okay.
And I didn't write it down because it wasn't planned.
Okay.
But like I'm talking about multi-level sustained support systems, which I think you're in the process of,
Yes.
but built around a single idea, such as cognitive science, or let's say high leverage instructional practice, and bring it through all subjects instead of one, if that's making sense.
No, but it actually makes total sense. And what it tells me, the fact that you're saying that means that I need to figure out a different way to tell this story, right, going forward. Because though we started with literacy, and though we had a very intensive focus, as you know, for the past several years on literacy, we're not like literacy check, that's one thing, and now math something different, and science is something different. Like this, that through line that you're talking about is actually something that we've been really intentional to think about across all of our curriculums, our specifically our content areas, and even the through line around what's happening in, and you said Chris's department in curriculum and instruction, as well as what's happening in the special education department, and what's happening in our student services, thinking about our students' mental health, et cetera. There are regular meetings, Miss Lindsay, and sorry, because we don't have the time to tell y'all everything that we do, but I promise you we do a lot, right? And we're kind of smart folks doing things that are informed by research and best practices too. But there are conversations, and not just conversations, but plans to help with that alignment. So that's Jill's team, right? And I'm like, I know you talk about the continuous improvement slide that you've probably seen 1,000 times from Jill, but there's other slides that you haven't seen, which really do pull that coherence and makes it clear that everybody cannot be doing their own thing, that we are moving towards our mission statement and grounded in some shared understanding of what best practices are. Those go across departments and teams. That's my quick answer, but we can talk. But you, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more to that. I will say though, again, it's really hard. I used in other worlds, other lifetimes, I use this idea of icebergs, because what I know, right, it's just human nature and just people's just capacity, because you're not in it with us. You're in it with us, your partners all day, but you're not in it day to day and seeing what we're doing. That oftentimes folks only see the tip of the iceberg, right? And you might think that that is all that's happening. That's all that folks are thinking about and talking about, and maybe even all that folks know. I promise you that underneath that tip, below that surface of the water, there's a lot of stuff that is happening. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of studying, a lot of research, a lot of experience, because we ain't new to this, right? That is informing the things that we do, and you only see the tip. So I'm trying to figure out a way without overwhelming folks, because you're never supposed to see the whole iceberg. It's not what it is. Just like all of you all have your industry, and I don't know every tidbit, right? At some point, you got to trust the process, but we are trying to be more and more transparent around those things that you don't see. But hopefully the things that you do see gives you some indicator that there's been some indication that there's been some back conversation. There's been some planning. This is strategic and intentional. Ain't nothing that's happening happenstance anymore. And we're not being all over the place. We're trying our best to be more aligned. And so though there's more places for us to get tighter and get more aligned, Lindsay, and even some of those departments that you just named, for sure, I'm gonna tell you that all day. What I hope that you and the rest of the family see is that we're making a lot of efforts towards alignment and actually getting aligned in a lot of key areas. The fact that our educators are now all doing assessments and that they're looking at data, that was not 3-4 years ago. The fact that we now have a literacy curriculum that everybody is using and discussing, and they can use it better, right? Because this is implementation time, and we have to get ourselves tighter with what it looks like on the ground and in practice. So we know there's work to do, but I hope you all see some evidence that that there's a lot of thoughtfulness and intention and research and data that's informing what we do and how we do it. But I haven't talked to you in a while, so I feel like we might need a session. But it's good to hear from you. I think I answered some parts. If not, I tried my best. I'm gonna stop now, and I'm gonna let Di and Rita tell me who's next.
Thank you so much. I feel like that was like 2 hours condensed into one. And yeah, I'm glad we have, Di is amazing at getting some notes down through all of this. And, so I'm glad we have a summary coming back at us about all of this because it was a lot. And now I think we're switching gears here. And Chris Albeck, I know we don't have quite as much time as we'd hoped, but like we would love to have you. You had a presentation for us and then some discussion after that as well. So welcome and thank you for being here, Chris. Or Director.
Welcome, Rita. Good evening, everyone. You guys do know it's the 9th inning of the World Series, and it's tied 5-5 with my Los Angeles Dodgers, right?
Go LA! I didn't know that, but
I didn't know either.
So
Sorry.
I'm gonna turn this off, but nobody spoil it for me because I'm gonna record it. All right. So
I'm sorry, I don't know
don't
the
be
sports ball.
texting me or
he said he's gonna
texting
turn it off, which means he was not listening to anything else we said prior to him going on. So now we're gonna drop the score in the chat. No.
I was listening. No dropping any score in the chat, please. All right, welcome everybody. Good evening. My name is Chris Albeck. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Di or Rita, would it be okay if I shared my screen?
Yeah, please do.
All right, when I try, it doesn't let me. So maybe you need to share me as like a co-host or something?
Give me one. Everyone should be able to share. Unless you want to.
Okay.
Unless you want to email it to me, and I'll try to post it up.
Okay. Let me share it I'll share it with you right now if that's right.
Okay.
Or Chris, it looks like I can share. Hold on a
All right.
second.
Go for it if you.
Yeah, hold on one second. I think I can do it.
Oh, I got it now. I think I had to mess with something. Can you see it?
Yep. Great.
All right. I'll clear all this stuff out of here. All right, we good? All right.
Yes.
Welcome everybody again. My name is Chris Albeck. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. So as always, we ground ourselves in our mission, which is to enable and inspire our diverse student body to achieve academic excellence and make positive contributions to the world. We put together a little agenda, but we'll also make some time for questions at the end. We're going to take a little bit of a math data dive at the beginning. As our superintendent referenced earlier, we had just done our fall data dive, and we're going to be bringing some of that data to you tonight, but also going to contextualize it a little bit in a way that I like looking at data. We're going to be talking a little bit about the California math framework. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the math work that has been upcoming and we have been working on. And then we're going to close off with some questions and also sharing with you some math information and learning sessions that we have coming to our community this fall. Sound okay? All right. So in addition, the department that I lead, we have our own vision and mission, which is aligned with our superintendent and our Board of Education's mission. And I just highlighted the S in our cause because I think it's relevant to you all. The S part of our cause says collaborates with students, families, and educators in the greater BUSD community in effort to build trusting relationships and informed decision-making. So that's the purposes of why we're here tonight, is to be in communication with you all, to hear from you what's happening at the school sites and for your kids, and for you all to hear what's coming down the pike from us, so we could, build those relationships and have shared decision-making. So as you've heard our superintendent share, our hashtag for this year is Berkeley Proud. Here's a few pictures that make us proud, but we are going to do a brief connector. We know it's almost reaching 9 o'clock, but we are going to call you out if your screen is off. So what are you proud of in what your student has done or experienced or accomplished during the first part of this school year? Anybody can unmic and just share something that's coming up for you.
This is outside of school, but I know that my student is volunteering to help construct homes for homeless folks, small homes.
Wow, I'd be super proud of that if I were their family. Thank you for sharing, Mari.
Yeah, thank you.
My kid has come home and explained to me what morphology is in his new language arts curriculum. And it's causing us to have conversations about piecing apart words and what they mean.
Wow, if that's not some coherence, I don't know what is. Morphology. I'm learning a lot in those classrooms too. Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Rita.
I was just going to say, both my kids have become willing to take good risks this year. They've both pushed themselves out of their comfort zones in different ways, which has been pretty cool to see.
Absolutely.
And encouraged by their teachers, which is awesome.
Right. Thank you for sharing. I think a hallmark of any good teacher is making sure that students feel comfortable raising their hands and sharing, despite whether they have all the confidence, whether they think they have the right answer or not. It's a sign of a strong classroom climate, which we know elevates student academic achievement outcomes. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead, and I'm going to bring up this slide, which many of you have seen before. This is a slide that we have been speaking about for a few years. And you might see that the title has the word literacy on. You'll be like, what the heck? I thought we were talking about math tonight. But similar to what our superintendent said, these tenets of what we were using and what we have used to build a literacy system, which we feel very proud about. We know that a lot of good things are happening in our current literacy system. We know that the work is not done and there's still a lot to do. But these same tenets of what we're doing with our literacy system is the same thing. Oh, we see that? How the same thing that we're doing with math, right? So I hear it all the time. Hey, Mr. Albeck, Director of Curriculum Instruction, you guys have been talking a lot about literacy. When are we going to start talking a lot about math? And I get that. I understand that literacy's been in the news. We hear a lot about the board meetings, but I just want to make it super clear that we have been focused on math and every day we're focused on math. So I just want to remind everybody that at the elementary level, our elementary teachers are teaching math and planning for math 1 hour a day. At the secondary level, our math teachers are math credentialed. And, I know they're thinking about reading and writing too, but they're thinking about math all day. And they have been thinking about math all day for years. So yes, maybe math hasn't been getting the attention that literacy has. But we have been thinking about math. We have been putting a lot of time to the iceberg metaphor into math, but we also believe that our systems of change that we talked about in other board presentations, but also these systems around collaboration, reliable assessments, sufficient academic instruction time, curriculum aligned, professional learning, and instructional coaching, these same tenets of building a literacy system is the same thing that we're thinking about as it relates to a math system. So with that, in addition to what we've been discussing, we just want to ground the conversation for today in some real-time data. And this is fresh off the presses. Some of this we presented to our board. Some of this I was just pulling off the CDE dashboard this weekend because I'm sort of a data nerd myself. And I'm also a very sort of competitive person. That's probably going to come out a little bit in this presentation, but I'm okay with that. So I just want to share with you all, this is our summative math data for the summative SBA test for all of BUSD students combined for how we've done the past 3 years. So in spring of 2022, 57.52 of BUSD students met or exceeded the standard for math as a district. In spring of 2023, 61.3%. In spring of 2024, 64% of BUSD students met or exceeded the standard for math. Like our superintendent said, incremental growth is not always the case. So despite these numbers not being astronomical, we are proud of this. And then drum roll, please. Can't hear the drum roll because we're on the Zoom. I see the superintendent doing this year. We made it to 66.2% as it relates to math in BUSD. So overall, for the past 4 years, we are making incremental growth. And then this is all Chris Albeck. So if you don't get something like that, if you don't like this, it's okay. We could talk about it. We are proud of what we're doing in Berkeley. But sort of like I said, I am sort of a competitive person. And when I was a teacher, I really wanted to make sure that my students were achieving at very high levels and a little competitive with the neighboring teachers. And then when I was the proud principal of Willard, the same thing came through. And now in this role, I like to think about, how are we in Berkeley doing not only compared to California, but how are we doing compared to districts that are sort of similar to us? Maybe comparing us to Oakland isn't the right fit, but I think comparing us to other districts that have similar size, similar demographics, similar resources is an interesting way of looking at data, and it's not a way of looking at data that we always see. So the slide to follow is showing how BUSD is doing compared to other districts and also California. So you can see California over the years, over the past 4 years, have been hovering around 33 to 37%, which is growth. BUSD, like the slide before you that you just saw, in 2021 was 57%, and this past year we got up to 66.2%. One of our neighboring districts that is very, very similar to us in regard to size and demographics is Alameda. So Alameda was a little bit lower than us in 2021 at 56, and last year they were at 59%, so a little bit of growth. Another district that sometimes I think of us as compared to, you guys may be like, oh, Davis, that's not like Berkeley. Davis has a lot of similarities to Berkeley in terms of size, a little bit in terms of demographic, a little bit in terms of like that university feel in the community. So that's shows how Davis has performed over the past few years. Castro Valley, another neighboring district, a little bit smaller, a little bit different demographics, but I think a nice way of thinking about benchmarking. And then for me, I know this next district, it's not similar to ours, with different demographic, different size, but I do think, thinking about districts that are very high performing, because at the end of the day, what I know as a teacher, as a principal, and as a director is Berkeley's students, Berkeley scholars can achieve as high as any other district, regardless of what their household income is. But I also think about it in terms of growth. So these are some districts that I compared Berkeley Unified to. This is what it looks like over the years. If you're a visual learner, you're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of numbers. I don't really see what that is showing us. Shows how the trend has moved, but this is the one that I sort of like the most, and I think it tells a strong message. So this is all those districts and how much their proficiency rates have changed over the past 4 years. So in Berkeley from 2021 to 2025, we have increased math proficiency for all students by 8.5%. So very, very, very proud of that, but also recognizing that we still have a lot of work to do. We know that we work within a system and within a nation that has systemic inequalities in it. And that is why we have set a 3x5 target. If this is new to you, what we mean by that is all of our students, we're looking for growth, 3% growth. But for certain students, our focal students, whether that be African American students, Hispanic, Latinx students, English language learners, students experiencing housing insecurity, we're looking for a 5% increase for these focal groups. So the next two graphs that you'll see before you is how our focal groups have done over the past 3 years. I'll close my mouth for a second and just let you take a look at those graphs. So for our focal groups, not all of them, but some of them, we're seeing less of the growth than potentially we saw for BUSD overall. And for some groups, we're not seeing much growth at all. I'll just break it down just a little bit for you. This is how all of these districts that I was comparing, how our African American students performed across the years. From Berkeley Unified School District, an 18.7% proficient in 21-22 to 20% proficient in this most recent school year. So again, comparison across the districts, it would look something like this. So California as a state is really headed in the right direction. 4% increase over those years. BUSD a 2.1% increase. Some districts not making any increases at all. You pull up one other indicator. This is our students with disabilities. across all the districts that we are comparing and also California, and how those students have progressed in regards to their academic achievement in mathematics. Growth over time, Berkeley holds at 2.7% for our students with disabilities and the other districts as you see here. So you might agree or disagree with the districts that have been compared to. I hope you're seeing like the data in a more of a contextual manner, because I think that's important to be thinking about districts that are similar in size, similar in demographic, and potentially similar in resources. We know Piedmont is a little bit of an outlier there, but I included it for the reasons that I had previously mentioned. So with that, Berkeley is proud, but we also believe in continuous improvement, and we know that there's a whole lot of work to do still to improve the outcomes of our focal students. And I would say all of our students, because I think we can get to that 80% range with a continued focus for sure. So with that, I am going to make a quick transition. Now we're grounded in sort of like how we're performing BUSD mathematics over the past few years, and then I'm gonna shift into sort of what's ahead, if that's all right. So the first thing that I want to call our attention to that is very, very important. In 2023, the California released their new math framework. This math framework, I mean, you can sort of see the description here, but it entails the way that mathematics is to be taught in California schools moving forward. Now, I just want to hold up that there has been a lot of controversy over this framework. There has been controversy at the state level. There has been controversy even at the county level. And I know that within our own community, there are a lot of concerns around some of the things that this framework holds up. You know, what you'll hear from me is, you know, these concerns are valid. Everybody can have their own perspective on this framework. And what I'll say as a BUSD district representative, you know, these controversies or these concerns, you know, we leave that to the folks at the state to resolve. We leave that for the folks at the county to potentially give us guidance on. We take this framework and we think about what's best for BUSD students, and we think about, you know, what are the things that this framework shares with us in regards to what we can bring to our students for some of the results like you just saw that we're getting. We know we need to do better, so we think about this framework as it relates to, you know, what's in the best interest of BUSD students. So I share that with you because this framework is currently, you know, in the process of getting implemented across some districts as it relates to the instructional materials that now they are bringing into their district to their students. So I'm sharing this with you because there's a lot in there. If you need some bedtime reading, go for it. It is a significant document. I share this. This is the glossary of all the chapters that are within the California Math Framework. We're going to be coming back to this in a second, just in highlighting some of the work that we have done around some of these chapters. But you'll see a lot of stuff in there from, you know, number sense to how we support our educators around PD. You'll see stuff in there around technology. You'll see stuff around there around actual instructional materials. You'll see pieces around equity in there. So a lot of pieces as it relates to this California Math Framework. The heart of it, of the California Math Framework, if I were to, you know, break it down into some of the most salient components, the first one is the framework really describes the why, the how, and the what of learning mathematics. The second component of the framework, which it comes out really strong, is the three dimensions of systemic change. And the last component, which I think has the most significant impact on instruction in mathematics, or will have the most significant impact on instruction in mathematics, is what they're calling the 5 components of equitable and engaging math teaching. So those 5 components, which is in this picture sort of down below, is around planning and teaching around big ideas, using open and engaging tasks in mathematics, teaching towards social justice, inviting students' questions and conjectures, and lastly, having students prioritize and reason in with justification for their mathematics. So those are some of the most core elements of the California Math Framework. What else is in the framework? There's chapters on practices, number sense, data science. There's chapters on grade band progressions, which I think is super important as it relates to our high school. There's chapters on structuring school experiences, supporting our educators, assessments, and instructional materials. I think something that is super important for you all as families to know is that this framework is not changing the standards, right? So back in the day, we went to the California Common State Standards. Those standards are still intact. And also you might have heard of the mathematical practices. Those mathematical practices are also still intact. Neither of those things have changed as it relates to the new California Math Framework. So with that, I want to share with you some of the work that has happened last year and some of the work that will be going on this year. So the last time that I came with you all and we presented to the board a few times, we were talking about a group that we were putting together called the Meeting of Math Minds, or M Cubed, if you want to be mathy. M Cubed is really focused on three things. The first thing we wanted to think about last year is we wanted to think about, like, what is the current mathematical experience for BUSD students. We're thinking about this not only in terms of some of the data that you just saw, but also, how are they actually feeling about math? How are our families feeling about their kids' math experience? How are our teachers thinking about teaching math? So we wanted to do a deep dive and to get a really solid understanding around this current math experience in BUSD. The second thing, or the second purpose of the Meeting Math Minds, was to really understand at a deeper level what this California Math Framework was, and to get some professional expertise on interpreting this California Math Framework. And the last thing we really wanted to do was to develop a BUSD instructional vision and framework for what we wanted to see in BUSD as it relates to mathematics. So last year, what we did is we put together a diverse group of stakeholders. We had 22 K-12 educators. Most of them continue to say, this is the first time in my 25 years in BUSD that I have been with, a 12th grade teacher, or the 12th grader say, I'm sitting with the kindergarten teacher. I'm thinking about math completely different than I ever did before. In this group, we also included site leaders. We had elementary admin, middle school admin, and high school admin. We had community partners, and we had parents all in one space. Now, I've only been in BUSD, I think this is 12 years, but this was pretty special to be thinking about a group of that diverse of stakeholders that was coming together once a month for an entire year to be thinking only about math. So we're really appreciative of all the folks that put the time in, that really came month after month, and to really be thinking about, what is it that we're trying to do in BUSD as it relates to mathematics. So this is some of the work that we were doing last year. This is just a little bit more of an overview. So as it relates to our current inventory of our current experience, we analyzed achievement data. We dug deeper into focal student cohorts using K2 assessments. We surveyed teachers, families, and students, and we also held focus groups at the high school. When it came to trying to figure out what this California Math Framework is, we brought in a professional learning from Silicon Valley Math Initiative, who engaged us in math instruction as it relates to the California Math Framework. We reflected on the elements that were important for us, given our district context. And then as it relates to the math vision, we grounded ourselves in the purpose. We looked at a bunch of different examples from neighboring districts and also districts throughout the country. Our lead team took all the feedback that we gathered throughout all of M Cubed, and then we did 2 rounds of feedback, revisions, and a consensus protocol to create what we are currently calling our BUSD math draft instructional vision and framework. This vision and framework has been shared widely at this point, and it is public access. All of these documents are on BUSD's math website. But we're very, very proud of it. It is a draft because we still have to get a lot more input from our community, which you'll be hearing a little bit more about in a minute. But I like to say things because I think it makes it meaningful. So we currently, in our vision statement in Berkeley Unified, we are guided by a vision for teaching and learning mathematics that leverages students' assets, engages them in meaningful work, and supports them in becoming collaborative problem solvers with the power to use math to understand and positively impact our world. This is the vision statement. Inside of the vision statement, you see sort of these 4 buckets and what that means for students and what that might look like for teaching. And as I said, we'll be iterating on this draft. So that's a little bit of where we're at with math and where we're looking to go. We know that there's a big benchmark coming up in November of this year. The state of California will be releasing their established math instructional materials list. So a lot of districts around the state are awaiting this list. This is the list of instructional materials or curriculums, if you want to call it that will be aligned with the new California math framework. We know that a lot of these curriculum providers are big businesses, so we are very much aware that, what are the real tweaks that these curriculums have done to make it aligned with the California math framework, and how do we really dive deep to make sure it is aligned with what we are looking for. And that's why we put together, potential piloting committees and all those kinds of things. If and when we do start looking for new instructional materials for BUSD as it relates to the new California math framework. So that's a big date that comes out in November. These dates have been pushed back before, so we are waiting on the release of those materials. And one of the things that we've really learned in our literacy work, many of the lessons that we learn in our literacy work, is how important it is to be speaking a common language, how important it is to do that foundational professional learning before an organization really starts thinking about a new curriculum or new instructional materials. So that's some of the work that is currently happening K5, 6, 8, as well in BUSD. So I think that's a little bit all I had on that. And the last part that I wanted to share with you all is that coming this fall, we will be conducting math information and learning sessions with our community. Our first one is tentatively proposed for December 8th or 11th and or July 15th. During that time, we'll be providing information to our community around where we're at with math, potentially taking a look at the instructional materials that have been provided by the state of California. But during that time, we'll also be listening more from our community around sort of what the needs and wants are. During that time, we'll also be presenting some of the survey results that we were able to gather last spring and last winter through the meeting of Math Minds. So with that, I am going to stop and take some questions.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to ask, I think Ivy had a couple of questions in the chat. Ivy, why don't you pop off mute and go ahead and...
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hi, Chris. This is Evie.
Hey.
Or sorry, Evie.
Yeah, no worries. So the question I had was around Silicon Valley Math Initiative and how, like how do we decide on them to lead the meeting of the Math Minds?
Silicon Valley Math Initiative is an organization that we have been working with for many years. And it's also an organization that we knew had a lot of knowledge around the new California math framework. So we had a pre-existing relationship with them. They were also an organization that was able and was willing to sort of meet our timeline in regards to providing some professional learning towards the M-Cubed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then, I mean, was there any, I know you mentioned the controversy originally in the broader California things, but debate, but I do think it affects the district level decision making. So I personally think going with Silicon Valley Math Foundation is making a decision, and they were one of the proponents, and there was a lot of disagreement. To me, was there an effort to include the other side of the argument at the table, or even just have a discussion? I mean, I don't know the minutes, or I haven't seen minutes from the meeting of the Math Minds, but was the other side presented or was it just the Silicon Valley Math Foundation?
The Silicon Valley Math Initiative are the ones that provided,
Initiative.
they were the ones that provided the facilitation around sort of what this California math framework is. We did as an organization and as M-Cubed talk about some of the controversies. And we were able to identify, what are some of the concerns that are coming up, similar to how I shared with you all here. I did share with them, like, at the end of the day, it is our work to be thinking about BUSD students. Yes, we live within, a political world that a lot of these conversations have in. And again, like, I really do, as much as possible, try to leave it to the state and to the county to try to figure this stuff out. And at the same time, I do believe that as a committee of parents and teachers and educational experts, or educational partners, we were able to really keep it focused on what does this mean for student learning? And that's what we continues to come back to. Like, what does that actually mean for student learning? Because, like, there's hundreds, and I don't even know if it's thousands of pages in that document, and there's no way you can internalize every single one of those. But what we can internalize and what we can think about is, what does this mean for the third grade class at BAM Elementary next year? Or what does that mean for me as a parent of a blank student, what blank grade student at this school, thinking about that for next year. So we were able to take all of it with a grain of salt, but also taking, like, if this is the direction that the state has asked for us to go in, yes, and really thinking about, again, what does that mean for our students?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is focused on the students, right? Because like part of the controversy that was raised was that there's disagreement on how to best serve the students, right? So like, there are a lot of like very prominent groups that came out against some of this framework, and most of them are actually advocating. So I think it is a disagreement around like what it means for the students. Like that's the end result that people care for, and I feel like we listen to one side but not. So I don't know how those disagreements against some of the issues that the Silicon Valley Math Foundation Math Initiative is bring, and they're basically like firmly in one camp of the debate, and I don't think that we fairly represented the other side.
I could hear that.
And I mean, it's like pretty big implications. And then when I see the vision, like I've seen the draft vision of the meeting of the math minds, I think there's a chunk of those concerns that are left out, and some big decisions are actually up to the district. So like, I don't think it's like the California framework kind of did not make a decision on like advanced algebra, or like there are certain things that they did kick down to the district. So we're sort of playing like, we're trying to like throw the hot potato or whatever the analogy is. But like, there are some decisions that we do have to make as a district because they're not finalized in the framework.
Yeah, and when those moments come, of course, we're gonna have to make those decisions. And the purpose of, the information and the listening sessions that are forthright this winter are to really be hearing from our families around what their perspectives are on some of these things that we need to make those decisions on.
Are those going to be by grade, by the way, or like how are you, or is it like a one, like big audience for everyone, or like how are they going to be structured?
More information to come, but
Okay.
I'd love to consult
Okay.
with you because I know you have a lot of thoughts on it.
Okay, I'll shut up now.
I think Rich had his hand up.
Hi, thanks. So, I absolutely understand like the rationale for devoting more resources and having, focus areas of students that like we are trying to bring up in terms of achievement in certain groups, and that like looking at the statistics of, what percentage of students are at or above level is important. But like that's only part of the picture. And ultimately, I think the ultimate goal should be that every student can perform at like the best potential for that student. And one of the problems I see with BUSD is that BUSD's math instruction is that the needs of high performing students are kind of ignored. And that, it's not a zero sum game. You could work things such that you look at all of the students, and that doesn't mean that like you're not paying attention to lower performing students. And I understand that historically the way like tracking was implemented has lots of problems, but there are other things to explore besides throwing that all out and doing nothing. And given that we're talking about a new curriculum, are we at all talking about new policies in terms of how that curriculum is delivered, and doing some level of math differentiation before grade 9, which is the current policy. And if we're not thinking about that, why not?
Yeah, I think you bring up some excellent points, and I think that's a worthwhile conversation for our community to be having. And one, I'll say this, as we went through the meeting of Math Minds, the one thing that continued to come up, Mr. Fromm, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is how are we in a mathematics classroom serving all of BUSD students? And all means all, right? That means students that potentially are 2 or 3 grade levels ahead. And that means students that are also 2 or 3 or more grade levels behind. Because at the end of the day, we send our students to school and we expect them to be learning and to be met at their level. Now, that being said, we know, and what I firmly believe is one of the biggest challenges is meeting all of those levels in a classroom with a teacher is a substantial task. It is not a task that can't be done. We have very experienced teachers in our district. We have very dedicated teachers to our district, but we need to equip them with materials that can allow them to do some of that differentiation that you're talking about, Rich. Because you're right, and I often see it where I go into a classroom and there are some students' needs, maybe on both ends of the spectrum, maybe on one of the spectrum, who are not either being challenged or they're not being supported. And we need to do better by that, Rich. And we were just having a conversation with some of the district math leads. I supervise a math TSA, and we're thinking about, like, if we were to have this dream curriculum, which we know isn't out there, right? Like, if there was, like, it'd be signed, sealed, and sold already. But what are our sort of priorities? And I would say number very high on our priorities is going to be differentiation. So how do we make sure that whatever instructional materials we're bringing to BUSD classrooms can be extended for students that are potentially ahead, but also how can there be aligned intervention materials at the tier 2, potentially even tier 3, for students that are not yet at academic proficiency. That being said, to your other point, Mr. Fromm, is around beyond in-class differentiation. Where is the differentiation potentially within progressions and pathways? I'll be very honest, Rich. I taught middle school math. Many, many moons ago. And I also taught Algebra 1 to 7th graders, and I taught geometry to 8th graders. So there was a time, when that was more common in districts, and some districts have shifted. We see evidence in San Francisco how they shifted one way and they very quickly shifted another way. So it's very complicated. You're completely right. We need to be thinking about what differentiation looks like, not only in the class, but in regard to progressions. And this, I'm gonna hold up one other thing around this, Rich, because as a middle school principal, I saw this play out strongly, right? Like I would have a lot of conversations with families around, like, hey, Mr. Albeck, my kid's like super happy, they got friends, all these kinds of things, but I got to be honest with you, like potentially in this class, like they know all of it already. And that's a challenge. And what I'll also say around that, and I think this might some people might like this or not like this. I also feel like all of our students have something to learn regardless of where they're at. So like with that, we would really talk a lot about social emotional, like what are the parts where your student potentially social emotionally is still developing. So that's like thinking about the broader students as a whole and not just their own mathematical experience. But I think, Rich, you have hit the nail on the head in regards to what one of our most serious considerations and most of our thought needs to be going into is meeting the needs of all of our students in a BUSD math classroom, because as our data results show, sometimes we're not meeting the mark on that one.
So is that explicitly under consideration, like change? I mean, I don't expect that we're going to come up with solutions in this meeting.
Yeah.
But like one thing, a topic that could be considered is like, should we offer advanced math in middle school and not just in high school? And I realize it's a complicated thing. I'm not trying to solve everything, but I would just like to know that there's, we're open to considering new things that we don't do currently.
I think this is a big moment for us to be doing that, to be thinking about things that we potentially have not been doing, thinking about things that we could be doing differently. This framework, whether for the controversies or not, like it is setting a course for what math instruction is supposed to be looking like in California.
Okay.
So I think we have a due diligence to follow that course.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got, let's just, Lindsay, your hand's been up for a bit here. Let's have you be our last question for tonight, since we're over by a bit already.
Thank you. I guess I'm just struggling a little bit with the dissonance because, I'm grateful that you put the meeting materials for the meeting of the Math Minds up because, it is helpful for the community. But in those meeting of the Math Minds, there's a timeline for an adoption and all the other materials and, times that you've spoken to the board or to us, you've been very careful to say that the board has not approved an adoption process, so there is not an adoption process. But then I see a timeline to prepare for adoption and select the materials in winter of 2026 after gathering input from only staff, DLAC, OFI, SPED, ELD. And so I'm glad that these community sessions are being planned because I do believe that that's how we get the best choices for our community is through like true engagement. But I'm worried about the dissonance of like, there's no timeline yet. I see a timeline in the meeting materials, or we're being evidence-based. Meanwhile, Joe Bowler's been discredited for presenting opinion pieces as evidence. Like, I'm struggling with the dissonance of being told one thing and then digging into the materials and seeing another. And that's where I have concerns about the way that we approach problems in not in silos so much, but treating each thing as a novel solution instead of seeing the common threads behind them, in that the foundational knowledge is needed to get to that beautiful inquiry space. In order to get to that beautiful space where math is treated like a fun logic puzzle and something that we can all engage in and see as part of ourselves and fostering that math identity, first we've got to know our times tables. And when we're told in third grade that it's not important and that they can use a calculator or that they can look it up on Google, that it's not ethical to teach kids their times tables anymore, that's where, again, the dissonance starts to come and we start conflating terms and not having the same definitions for everything. Because I view equity as making sure that everybody has a strong foundation on which to build this beautiful building of learning. So that's what I'm struggling with in some of these presentations, is the dissonance between what I'm hearing in one situation and seeing in another.
Yeah, that makes sense, Lindsay. And I'll just sort of get, for one thing, what I hear you saying. If you or anybody else in this space is worried that fluency is not going to be a priority in the next iteration of math, then I really want to assure you that it absolutely will be, because I agree with you. In effort for a student to tackle big ideas, in effort for a student to engage in open tasks, in effort for a student to pursue mathematics with an inquiry base, like they have to have that fluency. And we also know that Some of these instructional materials are potentially going to have that more as a foundation, and some of them are not. And we will absolutely be looking for that because I also agree with you that that is imperative that those skills are met by our students. The other part that I want to say, and I don't know if this is in regard to the dissonance that you are speaking to, but as much as this conversation is about math and getting to the previous point around coherence, let's be super clear. Like, we work within a 10,000 student district. We work our tails off to the iceberg comment that our superintendent, and it is a priority. It's just as much as literacy is our priority, it is also math is our priority. And we are limited in our resources and we are limited in our personnel. If we had 10 math TSAs, another, a math coordinator, you would have seen a timeline and you would have seen it out front already, Lindsay. But we also know that we have a lot of work to do. We also know that we have a brand new English language arts curriculum, which is taking a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous lift. We have to gauge what our capacity is of our current educators to be thinking about implementing something, in a year or two. So it's not as simple as saying, I'm seeing a timeline here, I'm not seeing a timeline here. There's a lot more to it. Resources, which you know very well, capacity of our educators, capacity of the central office team to support a change effort, to do it well. We know what it looks like to do it well. We think we know. We tried our darnest with the literacy to do it really well. We want to make sure that whatever we do in math, Lindsay, we do just as well. And we want to do it right. We know what it looks like when things aren't done right, when they're done half-assed. Sorry, PTA council, probably not appropriate. But we want to make sure that it's done right, Lindsay. So I get it. Like, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing this somewhere else, but you have to, and I know you do, but you have to trust us that we're not hiding something. We're not holding back on something. We're trying to do it right. And if it doesn't happen at the pace that people are happy with, I get it, because that's not happening fast enough for me either when I look at those results. But that's just
it's not I feel like people are getting defensive every time I speak. Like, I feel like the tone is getting like hot or something. But sincerely, I say these things with the core of my sentiment is that I believe in this district. I believe in the teachers. I believe in the children. And so my perspective is not that I think that you are deliberately obfuscating, and I realize that there are constraints, but I'm wondering how you come to the selections you come to and how you can show the teachers an adoption timeline, but then tell us straight face that there is no adoption plan. I don't care if it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as it's done right. Like you said, that's the most important thing. Move slow to move fast. We have your backs, but we need to be treated as partners. And I feel like there's always this defensive tone, and I think that if you watch this back, you'll see the defensive tone too. And I don't think I deserve that from either of you.
I must speak because I started it off, right? And so I want to respect and appreciate your feedback and how, if my response is included in what you just said, how my response impacted you. I too believe that we're partners, and I really talk about collaboration, but also talk about just cooperation and partnership. And I think for me, sometimes when I hear, and perhaps even tonight when I heard your commentary, I didn't hear it as an inquiry. I didn't hear it as how might we. I didn't hear it as collaborative or partnering, because it felt like you already knew and you had already decided something. And so I take responsibility for that and want to acknowledge that if my tone made you feel that we're not being collaborative. I think that when you come to me as if you know and you got it and it did feel a little accusatory, then I probably responded as such, but that was not my intention. But you keep it real with me, I'm gonna keep it real with you. So I'm a human all day first, right? But I will say that I acknowledge that and I hear that on behalf of myself and my team. That's not our intent, but I do wonder if we could all talk about and figure out what does cooperation look like, and what does assumption of positive intent look like, and what is coming from truly an inquiry stance, and not quoting. Don't send me websites and don't tell me who said what. Like, ask me, because it does sometimes feel like, and this is just something that educators in general have to deal with, that folks don't think, it's just, we're the expert, we're gonna come tell you, and you have an expertise, but so do we. And so how do we bring all of our ideas, our experiences, and everything to the table and figure out what's best for babies together without an assumption of who knows what more, better, etc. So I'm gonna pull back because I'm doing it again, but I want to acknowledge what you said, and how my response might have influenced what you said. But all day, let's partner, but let's be fair, and for real, let's really honor and respect what everybody brings, and let's assume positive intent. I assume positive intent every time you make a comment, even though sometimes it doesn't sound positive when it comes across the microphone. But I appreciate you, partner, all day. Since I started, we've been working together. We're gonna keep working together. But let's all just, anyway. Chris, did you want to say anything? Not to put you on the spot, but she was saying and I jumped in, so I didn't know if you were gonna respond.
That's all good. And I absolutely would echo that. And I appreciate you, Lindsay, of course, as a partner. And the rest of you all, there's no other reason that you would be on this call at 9 p.m. at night if you didn't care about our students and if you didn't care about our district. So I agree with that. And that's never been second guessed.
We like it. Keep it up. We done met with Evie. We done met. Like, come on. We love the ideas and the different perspectives. Let's push on each other to make the best product for our baby. So it's never personal, though this work is personal to all of us. But we appreciate you, Lindsay, and thank you for being honest about how our responses impacted you.
Okay, I had said Lindsay's was our last question of the night. Everyone, thank you so much for hanging in there as late as we have and having this discussion. I also appreciate everyone who came and put things in the chat and is thinking about this and bringing it back to your schools as well, because that's probably the next step in all of these conversations. Chris, can I ask, and it was on a slide, I think, the dates that you were proposing, either now or when you have them firmed up, can you loop us in on those so we can make sure that those get into things like our PTA newsletters at the schools and things like that?
Absolutely, Rita.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. We've broken my cardinal rule of going past our 9 o'clock time. So thank you, everybody. I do want you to return. Our meetings don't usually go this late. So everyone have a good night. I will send out minutes for everybody here, and we'll definitely follow up questions after this. So thank you, everyone. Okay, have a good night.
Bye, thank you.
Andy, I just